tell a very old story about Seawoman. She is the guardian of the sea and the creatures that live in the sea. When she is angry, she makes the storms, and she goes to her secret house in the bottom of the ocean. But when she is at peace, the sea is calm, and she rises again to listen to those who sing at her shores.
We have in this globe another being which has an intelligence, and there's no need to find the ET in this outer space, because it's just living here in the Earth, and we just don't see it.
Rauno Lauhakangas believes that many years ago people communicated with whales, even understood their language. He has been looking for evidence in legends, folklore, and prehistoric art. After many years of searching, he may have found some on the remote islands and coasts of Karelia, in the White Sea, northwest Russia. The evidence here is very old. Petroglyphs, symbols, and images that suggest intimate, complex communication between people and beluga whales. Lauhakangas thinks the people who lived by these waters years ago were members of a beluga tribe. They were as much whale as human. On the shores of the Vig River, Russian archaeologists have been analyzing rock carvings of whales that were made 6,000 years ago.
The animals are cousins. They have the similar power as human being, because human being has not separated from nature. They just are different, but they have the similar type of behavior.
They're not easy to understand, but they are the earliest record of a relationship between humans and beluga whales.
There was a very interesting picture about the sonar-like human being, which has actually the white whale in the same image. This figure tells that there's communicating with this over-exaggerated tongue. It shows that the Aboriginal people communicated with the white whales somehow. People are not communicating, but they are communicating in some kind of unconscious level. It's sad that we cannot grasp that spiritual level in modern times. We have lost it.
Lancaster Sound in Nunavut, the eastern Canadian Arctic. If you want to watch that ancient communication between human and whale, you come here. It's early June. The sun shines at midnight. The belugas gather at the edge of the ice and wait for the warmth to open passages to their summer waters. The Inuit hunters gather as well. They have been coming to meet the belugas here for more than 4,000 years.
Manaka six o yung okay ako na sa pagdara sa mayo. Akira sa mayo. Isa ko si kaya ko tama ko na. Isa ajiging itok taman na sin ilan taman na kayo makoy dun awan pitari tama siyong naktok. Ilan kayo mangikaraksan kisane naksuti untuk kau mata, siapa tu iman tak kami uan itu nunami, mana yang kau yang mata nak terjadi, mana kau yang mana kau yang. Jadi sila tu nak sama. Ila yung may nagsara ka yung may kasi sila tu nak sama ata. Isa magayak sa manila.
This is the ship and the white whale here, and the harpoon is just hit on the body, and you see how the rope is flying in the air. This is very dynamic picture in the rock. This tells us the story about the culture which was after ice period. It is still a living culture in the Arctic area, where the whale is the brother of the tribe. If we still continue about this story, we encountered this Russian scientist who study in the white sea and the white whales, that they claim that the white whales has a language to send messages to each other, and this comes much more and more interesting, because it might be that we have in this globe another being which has an intelligence.
Professor Vsevolod Belkovich is Russia's leading marine mammal scientist. He has been studying beluga whales for 40 years. In 1991, when the Soviet science machine collapsed, money for research disappeared, and Belkovich and his colleagues had to scramble for international support. They got just enough to keep going. Belkovich and his team are based here. The Shirshov is still a first-rank scientific institution. They study behavior among wild belugas in the White Sea, especially the way they communicate. In 1995, the Belkovich group began using underwater cameras and hydrophones to match what the whales are doing with the sounds they make. There was a lot to study. Belugas are the most vocal of all the whales. The team is putting together what amounts to a beluga whale alphabet. Belugas don't open their mouths to vocalize, and that makes it hard to tell which whale is making which sound. Whales have developed complex sound chambers inside their skulls. The chambers generate signals that map the animal's surroundings and act as communication. The hydrophones identify the signals from each whale. The researchers correlate the signals with the behavior captured on videotape.
Общепринятое мнение, что это сигналы, которые наиболее часто встречаются и вообще каким-то образом маркируют социальное взаимодействие. Причем эти сигналы, так сказать, относительно понятны и доступны нашей слуховой системе. То есть те же самые блеяния, которые вы слышите вот чаще всего сейчас, это сигналы, которые очень часто используются в общении между матерями и детенышами и другими родственниками.
The scientists don't have many resources, but with persistence and passion, they've been able to come up with new ways to record the whale's motions and sounds.
Уже есть некоторый опыт подводных съемок белуг, и он показывает, что съемка неподвижной камерой, она не так интересна, чем когда камера может двигаться.
Since the beginning of the program, Volodya Baranov has been refining the remote underwater camera systems. This one is his latest invention, and the first of its kind.
It is object of my honor. I am proud of it.
In 1958, the Soviet Union launched its first beluga whale research expedition in the White Sea. Belkovich was part of the team. Back then, nobody knew much about beluga whales. The early science focused on their basic biology. Scientists soon discovered that whales and dolphins have large and complex brains, similar to ours. Belkovich was fascinated. He started trying to find a way to study what the mammals did in relation to the sounds they made. The Soviet Navy got interested. The researchers fitted dolphins with radio transmitters to record how far, fast, and deep they went. These were secret experiments, and many of the records are still classified.
Здравствуйте, дорогие товарищи. Привет, Володя.
Times have changed. Belkovich works with smaller budgets now and gathers different material.
Так.
His team is documenting behavior never recorded before,
Ну давай, море.
like the beluga's mating patterns. The researchers now think some female belugas mate with several males each season.
И мы очень хорошо понимаем эмоциональную сторону сигнализации белухи. Крики радости, гнева, скажем так, протеста. Они очень хорошо интерпретируются наблюдателем, чисто интонационно. Но расшифровать смысл каждой акустической фразы, эти там подлежащие, сказуемые определения, мы пока не можем.
The beluga whale, Delphinopterus lucus, white dolphin without a fin. A very old design, essentially unchanged for 5 million years. Belugas have complex brains, larger than human brains. The brain structure seems to indicate high intelligence and self-awareness. Their physiology is remarkably like ours. In some ways, it's an improvement. They can dive deeper than 500 meters, holding their breath for over 30 minutes. They mostly live in Arctic waters and thrive in temperatures barely above freezing. Beluga whales are the focus of mythologies and legends throughout the northern regions of the planet. One of the legends is the story of Seawoman, a tale that still has profound meaning for many people who live in the Arctic. Seawoman is the guardian of the northern traditions, of the old ways, and she has been gravely challenged over the last 4 decades.
Now we have this chance to fully control what's happening in our area. We can make our own set of rules now, either to manage or to conserve the wildlife.
Now the Inuit have taken back political control of their land. In a way, Seawoman has returned.
The word conservation has changed over in the last 100 years. They know that they have to conserve so much over the winter until they get to spring or whatever. So there was no set rules on conservation, but there was perception of conservation in the way how they live on a daily basis.
Many Inuit still eat country food, like beluga meat and the meat of the narwhal, the beluga's closest relative. In the past, hunters and scientists didn't always agree on the numbers of Arctic whales. Inuit hunters can read natural patterns and sense the answers to questions like that. The new government of Nunavut now regulates hunting quotas, giving the hunters their say in the management of beluga and narwhal.
kaya magaya ka masyoro tong magkakakudri banyo na kang mata. Ipo may tamaan na yun. Saan na inyo kaya may dito kang ipo may tamaan na yun sa kami. O kaya outang yaksak. Kasi ito yung naksip. Apit ko tigiyaw pat tamaan na katang nga kaya marugo. Kaya inyo kaya may dito kang iba. Kasi ito yung.
I'm glad that this traditional knowledge is being taken seriously, but sometimes I'm scared for people that make rules for us, and these are the people that they never seen wildlife. All they see is the squirrels in their backyards. It's different.
Maybe this is the last chance to meet another being with intelligence to communicate, because all cetaceans in the oceans are in danger, not even for hunting, but the pollution is the most severe danger for them.
Arctic whales are the barometer of the health of the ocean. In the 1980s, scientists started finding industrial contaminants in their blubber. The scientists and the hunters set out together to tackle the problem. The hunters gathered whales, and the scientists analyzed the toxins in the whales' bodies. It's a new kind of communication between human and whale, and a warning about a developing sickness in the sea.
Bothers me, like, why do these animals have contaminants in them? In my mind, sooner or later we're going to get affected with all these contaminants, which I think will affect our diet, and it worries me.
The toxins come in on the winter wind and the sea currents from industrial plants in the south. They spread throughout the Arctic. They become concentrated in the predators at the top of the food chain. Beluga whales are born gray and turn white as adults. They live about 30 years in the wild. The Moscow Aquarium captured these belugas in the Russian Far East and brought them here for public display. The researchers have come here to sample the sounds these whales make and compare them to the sounds of the wild whales of the White Sea.
Зачастую, если животное, как егор, содержится в изоляции от особей того же вида, то они вообще перестают, так сказать, общаться под водой. А их активность вокальная смещается теперь больше в плане общения на воздухе.
Beluga whales have natural sonar, which enables them to see with sound. They send out clicks and pulses from their foreheads. The signals bounce back acoustic images of the world around them. Belugas also use sound to communicate below the surface and sometimes above. Sonar signals in a confined tank become confusing. In the wild, beluga whales are very social, almost never seen alone. Their social behavior is structured and subtle. Vsevolod Belkovich believes that there is a kind of advisory council of beluga whales that decides how many babies are needed each year. He says that each season a small group of males will come to a reproductive site to meet the females. They assemble, head to head, as if in a discussion.
О чем они говорят, я не знаю, но этот обмен сигналами заканчивается тем, что они все расплываются, разваливаются в разные стороны, и остается 2 самца, 4 самца, а остальные уплывают и не участвуют в размножении.
Лично меня привлекает больше всего внутренний мир этих созданий. То есть попытка увидеть мир их глазами, попытка пробить ту грань, которая существует между нами, людьми и животными, конкретно белухами. Но, к сожалению, я думаю, что для науки эта задача не из простых. Потому что необходимо непосредственное также общение с животными. Однако в связи с тем, что поведение белух в неволе значительно изменяется, одного этого общения недостаточно. Необходимо вести исследования по разным направлениям. То есть изучать белух в естественных условиях. Владимир Спартакович.
The Solovetsky monastery was built in 1436. And there were beluga whales here then. In 1921, the Soviets turned the monastery into a prison, the headquarters of the Gulag, the chain of concentration camps that spread across the Russian north. The gulags disappeared, and the Soviet Union disappeared, and the belugas are still here. It wasn't always clear they'd survive. For generations, their oil was an essential commodity, a lubricant that kept the machines of the industrial age running. Their meat was processed for food, animal fodder, and fertilizer. Their skin was made into leather. Beluga whales became as helpless in our world as we are in theirs. Today, Cape Beluga on Solovetsky Island is a conservation area. The belugas are protected here. A warm boreal climate makes this a special place. There's a renewed respect in the relationship between people and whales. The Russian researchers come to Cape Beluga every summer to gather their field data. The belugas live here year-round. Fresh water from the rivers keeps some areas along the coast clear of ice in the winter. The whales keep close to the shores, where warm, shallow currents create a protective nursery for the beluga babies.
И вот когда мы стали изучать соловецкое скопление, вот это репродуктивное скопление, и вообще создается впечатление, что это не только удобное место для того, чтобы родить детенышей и вновь, так сказать, спариться с самцом, но это дамский клуб, где можно обменяться новостями, если говорить популярным языком, да, показать свое потомство и определиться вообще, кто есть кто, табель ранг. И вот вся социальная жизнь этого вида, она предстает единой такой живой, динамичной картиной.
The researchers control their underwater cameras from the tower. They can watch the whales without bothering them. It's an unobtrusive, amazing window on a hidden world. The whales are wild, free to swim anywhere they want, but they seem to like the underwater camera sites. The researchers say they see the same thing every time they put in a new camera. The scout whale, most likely a dominant female, checks out the arrival by herself. After a few days, more adults drop in. And once the mothers are satisfied the camera is not a threat, they bring their babies to have a look as well. Beluga whales shed their skin each year by rubbing along sandy sea bottoms. But this footage shows these belugas doing their rubbing in the same place. The whales seem to stand in line, wait their turn to rub on the exact spot used by the whale before. There are many things the whales do that the researchers don't understand. Other behavior is easier to explain. The whales here are feeding on small sea worms that hide in sand piles on the bottom. The whales spit water to blow away the sand and expose their food. Every time the researchers install a new camera, the whales come up with something to amaze them. Researchers can catch glimpses of their lives from the surface and longer looks with the remote cameras. The technology is improving. Science may be rediscovering the kind of understanding our ancestors had 6,000 years ago. Maybe just in time. There are only 1,000 beluga whales left in the White Sea, the last population in Europe.
New science makes new methods, and by the old methods you can make only an old science. So I am not going for research and observing, make papers about what we see. I try to make some new technologies.
This is a 360-degree underwater camera system. It can capture the sounds and images of every whale within range of the camera, all the time. The camera uses 4 overlapping frames to make a complete circle, and 3 hydrophones help the researchers tell which whale is making which sound. It could be a big step towards cracking the beluga code. If we succeed, we may find the whales have some compelling things to say. The researchers at Cape Beluga have found that the whales live in a complex society with long-standing, even lifelong relationships between mothers and children. Perhaps through this contact, the beluga whales also learn something about us. During the 1970s, people around the world seized on whales as a symbol of vulnerable, sentient nature. Saving whales seemed to inspire a new sense of reverence and conservation for nature. An awareness that ironically echoes the past.
Wales has been visited White Sea 10,000 years after ice period. Whales in the rock has been there more than 6,000 years. So I think that's a great idea to try to keep them both alive in our culture. It seems that this is the last chance to save the great whales in the oceans. If we cannot even save the whales, what can be done for the Earth in general?
Белуха играла гораздо большую роль в жизни тогдашних людей, населяющих берега Белого моря. Возможно, это загадочное существо, которое выныривало из глубин холодного моря, было для них богом. Но совершенно очевидно, убивали белух, ели их. Они общались с ними на духовном уровне. Я думаю, что, может быть, язык белух был более понятен нам сегодня.
Imana kumi ku ako pasyan tapana la mangone imana iduri oktodo titira to yuwini inyong ni kano kaya tukisiyo sa mga manutako sa mga orko kamo what's mo ko atitira ona ritikere tuwina una taonga una kuru una the person who drew this had a very strange imagination, or maybe he was drawing on the rock because he's seen something that we never seen before.
Long ago, Seawoman was one of us and lived on the land. But one day, she fell into the cold sea and could not save herself. Her frozen arms and legs fell off and turned into the whales. She sank to the bottom of the sea, and that became her home. Seawoman watched over the people who needed her creatures to live. In the old days of harmony and balance, Seawoman offered humans her creatures freely. But more and more people claimed her bounty, taking more than Seawoman could replace. Seawoman was angry. She kept her creatures hidden by her side at the bottom of the sea. Some of the very bravest went down to her world to ask for the animals' return. But Seawoman and the animals were nowhere to be found. Only the distant sound of her singing could be heard, echoing through the cold, dark sea. We still hear the sad song of Seawoman today, telling us that what we once understood has now been forgotten.